Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 306, your weekly little get-together where we talk about recent gaming news. I'm, as always, your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight we have a couple of big stories to go over. One, it seems like Sega is going to be bringing Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio to cash in on some nostalgia. Hennig is going to finally get her Star Wars, and David Jaffe seems to have the courage of his convictions, telling Tencent to essentially go fuck themselves. But first, I want everyone here to know that this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching here live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. over at Twitch TV/GamePoints or later over at YouTube.com/GamePointsPC, feel free to join in the conversation. Put in whatever questions, comments, concerns, etc. you might have. Just try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. First up, let's go ahead and get right into this top story here. Where is it? There it is. This is via Bloomberg. Sega reboots Crazy Taxi Jet Set Radio to chase Fortnite riches. I'm already disheartened by that title, by that headline alone. I was not a Crazy Taxi guy, but I did like Jet Set Radio. However, I am not enthused to hear that they are chasing the game rather than creating something original again. I got no problem with rebooting old franchises, but when you reboot a franchise in an attempt to cash in on what's popular, you tend to not be too happy with the results. At least I tend not to. So I'm already having the well poisoned from me out the gate by this headline, if that is indeed where they're going with it. To the article itself. Sega Sammy Holdings Incorporated is developing big-budget reboots of its Dreamcast games Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio, as it taps its back catalog in search of global hits like Epic Games Inc.'s Fortnite, according to people familiar with its plans. So, one thing out the gate, notice that they're saying with people familiar with its plans, this is not officially confirmed yet. However, given that Bloomberg is reporting it, I am willing to bet that this is happening, at least behind the scenes. Whether this sees the light of day or not, who the hell knows. But I am willing to accept that this is happening. Furthermore, this does kind of hint at what Sega has dropped in the past when they've said they were wanting to revisit old franchises or do something similar. Back to the article. The two titles would be the first entries in Sega's Super Game Initiative, which the company announced a year ago, as an effort to develop recurring revenue sources and build online communities around its software portfolio. Fortnite has become the role model for such games. Free to play, and is available across platforms, hosts large multiplayer contests to include extras like vehicles, construction, and social events on top of the usual combat, spurring player purchases of in-game items. Once again, companies are no longer just interested only in your money. They want your money and your time. And as more and more games demand more and more of your time, you will eventually be left with only a few big fish at the top. I get the feeling these things like Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio, whatever they're going to be doing with them, they already feel like they're coming a little bit late to the party. These slices of the pie have already been divvied up. But, you might get at least strike maybe a little few coins here and there, hopefully enough to continue whatever the hell you might be doing, just staying away from this. I am already disillusioned, if you can't tell, by this Fortniteization, this free-to-play, this lowest common denominator of everything has to have a battle pass, everything has to have these crossover events, everything has to have these reoccurring transactions in here. I know that this is the way games have been going for the past, hell, it feels like a decade at this point, ever since they introduced the old Horse Armor DLC for Oblivion back, 10 years ago at this point. But I didn't expect them to be... I always thought they would be like an add-on or an additional, negligible purchase you can put onto a game if you wanted it. They're becoming the sole focus now, and it's really starting to bum me out. Hey, there's stuff with Twitch. Yeah, nostalgia berries. That's what these are. They're going to be hitting your old nostalgia, so you can hear the Osprey go, yeah, 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 and blow down a Crazy Taxi, all the while getting the Crazy Taxi season pass to unlock new songs and crazy images for your taxi cab as you go flying down the streets. Hell, maybe you'll even have Rick Sanchez as a passenger. Wouldn't that just be grand? Back to the article. The new Crazy Taxi has already been in development for over a year, and the Tokyo-based entertainment group aims to release it within 2 to 3 years, the people said. asking not to be named as the information is not yet public. Once again, anonymous sources, so everything that you hear here, take with a grain of salt, though I do believe it to be true. It was named alongside Jet Set Radio in Sega's annual report a year ago on a list of intellectual property assets that Sega wanted to recapitalize by bringing them up to date. Both new games are in the early stages of creation and could still be canceled, the people said. Even the article itself is making sure to understand, hey, this stuff might not see the light of day. But it has that certain air of truthiness, as it were, to use a Stephen Colbert phrase. This sounds like something that Sega would do. This sounds like something any video game publisher would do. In fact, you're seeing it all the time now. And this is going to happen. So expect Crazy Taxi. Expect Jet Set Radio. Awesome. Expect them to be multiplayer, party-flavored centric. That whole iOS store of lowest common denominator that you're starting to see just take over a lot of this stuff. And that's not good. Unfortunately, they really are going to be milking that nostalgia to get people to come in and do this. Anyways, next story. Sounds like Amy Hennig is going to finally get her Star Wars game. Skydance New Media today announced a collaboration with Lucasfilm Games to develop and produce narrative-driven action-adventure game featuring an original storyline in the Star Wars galaxy. Helming Skydance New Media is award-winning writer and director Amy Hennig, a game industry legend whose credits include the blockbuster series Legacy of Kain, Jak and Daxter, and Uncharted. When I hear narrative-driven action-adventure game and they have Amy Hennig attached to it, I can't help but think of her previous jaunt Ragtag, which was being developed by Vicarious Visions or Visceral. Visceral. It was being developed by Visceral Games before they got shut down by EA. And that was one of the better sounding Star Wars games. Of course, it got the axe from EA. Hopefully she finally gets a chance to maybe visit some of the ideas she had for that. I doubt it's going to have any similarity to the previous game other than the genre, because EA probably owns a lot of those IP rights, despite it being also owned by Disney, because it's a Star Wars brand. You can't just make a game that you were developing for EA for someone else. So it's going to be something brand new story. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see some elements, maybe a little bit of the plot get worked into this. We'll see. I imagine this is still years out. Back to the press release. I've often described how seeing Star Wars in 1977 essentially rewired my 12-year-old brain, shaping my creative life and future indelibly, said Hennig, president Skydance New Media. I'm elated to be working with Lucasfilm Games again to tell interactive stories in this galaxy that I love. This is the second significant project announced with the game studio, which has been formed by Hennig and veteran producer Julian Beek to pioneer a new category of narrative-driven interactive entertainment. In late 2021, the studio announced a partnership with Marvel Entertainment to craft an all-new game with an original story and a unique take for beloved Marvel characters. So this is the second deal that they have with the Mouse, those folks over at Skydance New Media, and they haven't released anything yet. So I always am concerned when I see an unproven studio, despite the names behind it, they are still unproven, be handed multiple projects, because I start wondering if they might get spread too thin. It's the same concern right now that I have with Remedy. They're not unproven, but they are definitely having way more things coming out than a studio that size feels like it should be able to support. I could be wrong on that, but it does feel crowded. And when you look at something new like Skydance, who I don't think has released anything yet, I need to look into that. I could be wrong on that. Let me know if I am wrong. But they have these two big properties under their belt and nothing to show for it yet. That is concerning. I'd expect the Marvel game before the Star Wars game because it was announced earlier, yes. And with Amy Hennig behind it, I do expect hopefully something decent. My other concern is that maybe her dialogue is starting to get a little old-fashioned. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but a lot of the things she works on, most notably Uncharted, but to a little bit lesser degree, Jak and Daxter, the protagonists tend to have that Joss Whedon-esque syndrome, that bored even in the face of the end of the world styling of dialogue. If you've seen Buffy or you've seen any of the Whedon stuff out there, you know what I'm talking about. Even Nathan Drake has a lot of this about him, where it could be the most dire situation ever, and he just comes off as flippant 100% of the time. And the problem is that Star Wars would actually be very fitting for a character like that. It's just I'm kind of tired of that archetype of character, but I can see a Han Solo-esque smuggler essentially being a Nathan Drake knockoff, and I don't want that. What I want is for Amy Hennig to be able to create a narrative game in Star Wars universe that was kind of like Rogue One. Something a little bit more mature, something kind of dark. Doesn't have to be 100% good versus comically evil. I like the shades of gray of the Star Wars universe. That's why I did not care too much for Battlefield 2's story, where it was just comically evil people against people who were stormtroopers and went, well, this is fucked up, we're going to become good. I've no offense, but I've seen that story 1,000 times. Give me something dark. Give me something gritty. It doesn't need. I'm not even asking for like Grand Theft Auto or anything like that, but maybe a little bit, perhaps a grittier Uncharted. I know, despite me comparing it to Uncharted earlier, how I don't want that dialogue in there, but take like the fun of Uncharted. Take the Indiana Jonesiness of Uncharted. Darken, gritty up just a little bit. Give it some of that Rogue One grime. And then slap it into a game. And I think you might have something really good here. Either way, it is good to see Amy Hennig finally being able to get another shot at a Star Wars game. Hopefully this one comes to light and does not get pulled out from underneath her like Ragtag did. Moving on, we had another game announcement coming up, and this is the new World of Warcraft expansion, Dragonflight. They had their big reveal today, actually, even though details of it were leaked a little bit earlier. They came out with a very beautiful trailer. The art department behind Blizzard, one of the few things that are still worth a damn at that company, it seems. They have had a very big series of unfortunate incidents, shall we say, over the past few years. But the art department's still nailing it. Hell, I even like the way this looks here with Alexstrasza, both in her human and dragon forms, back behind me there. The trailer itself shows the dragons leaving their home 10,000 years ago to go heal the world during the destruction of the Eternity. Well, I'm not too up to date with my World of Warcraft lore anymore. But when they left, they essentially left a bunch of stone watchers behind to light the way for them to come back when it was time. Well, now it's time. The cinematic shows some of these stone watchers coming back to life from their long slumber to relight the beacon, and then all the dragons come back, led by Alexstrasza. Few details were given at the release here. You have this new weird little race of scaly dragon people called the Drakthir. They have a new class called Evoker, and I believe you can be either Horde or Alliance with them. So people who like to do that panda-ish shifting between the races, there you go. Ninja Wolf, you're saying that you've heard of new expansion will be out in 2023. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. I doubt it's the end of this year, given the current problems with Activision. It would probably be around this time next year. I don't know if there's a date for it yet. I'm not positive on that. But the Scalies out there, I'm sure, are happy. The furries had their Worgen. Now they can have dragon people. You're going to have your various abilities, new mounts, all that good stuff. You can see right here, it's your typical Warcraft expansion. Bumping you up to level 70, new area to explore, new mounts. Apparently, they're revamping the talent trees again. And from what I understand, the UI is getting an update as well. That could be interesting to see, considering that World of Warcraft is going on multiple years. I think it's 14 at this point. When did Warcraft come out? 2006? 2007? I don't remember. But it's definitely been a while. And for a game that's been as long as it has been, it still has a decent-sized player base, although one that has been diminishing over the years, being gobbled up by the likes of Final Fantasy XIV and the other competitors that are out there whose names are currently escaping me at this moment. I don't know how much farther they can go with the plot to World of Warcraft at this point. I have no idea. I feel like they should start kind of wrapping things up to make way for a World of Warcraft 2 or something. Give us a new Warcraft game to build off of into a new setting. I just feel, and I really felt this with Shadowlands. I tend to buy a month's worth of WoW time once every expansion to play around with it and see the new stuff. And I really felt with Shadowlands they were trying to stretch out things. They were running out of ideas. I don't know if Dragonflight's going to be any better or not. This has Mists of Pandaria written all over it to me, which was my least favorite expansion. But if you're into it, more power to you. Ninja Wolf, thank you very much for giving me the release date of World of Warcraft. It came out November 23rd, 2004. So it's even older than I thought it was. It's almost 20 years old. Jesus Christ. 18 years of play. Could you imagine if you started playing this game like religiously back in 2004 when it first came out and you were like a kid, you were like 12 or something like that. You're now 30 and they're still making content for this fucking thing. This is not me bashing World of Warcraft too hard. I mean, admittedly I am. But I'm not like saying that you should feel bad for playing it. I get the allure to it. I understand why a lot of people still like it to this day. There's a reason why they keep supporting it. It's because people keep paying for it. But goddamn, it really feels like it's time to start sunsetting this game and leading into something new. Jesus Christ. For comparison, January 2001 is the original RuneScape release date. Yes, but RuneScape isn't nowhere near as popular as World of Warcraft has been. That is good to know, though. It's good for comparison. Also, for those of you who are into the World of Warcraft Classic, they did announce a new trailer for the Wrath of the Lich King, which will be coming to those Classic servers soon-ish. So, look forward to that. 1 second. The joys of doing a live show. I need to take a drink every now and then. Next story. This is via Axios and the ongoing labor disputes that are popping up all across the games industry. Nintendo has been hit with a labor complaint. An unnamed worker is alleging that Nintendo and a firm it uses for hiring contractors violated their legally protected right to unionize according to a new filing of the National Labor Relations Board. The NLRB complaint, filed on Friday, brings one of the most successful companies to increasingly active conversation about workers' rights in the sector. The allegations state that Nintendo of America and global hiring firm Aston Carter engaged in, quote, concerted activities, end quote, and made coercive actions against a worker interfering with their legally protected right to organize. The exact claims of what happened are unclear because the publicly posted document for the complaint lists broad charges but doesn't describe what is said to have occurred. But it does indicate allegations were likely to include claims of surveillance, threats, retaliation, and either a layoff or a refusal to hire. It is important to note here, we actually don't know what happened at all. All of this is speculation. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if this was true. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't true. But until we actually have more details on this story, try to keep any outrage or claims under control. It is important to note that we are in a time where there is game developers seem to have a lot of power at this point because there is a massive hiring spree for talent right now. When that happens, you can tend to make more demands, and companies tend to do a little bit more to keep talent around. For example, we had Activision Blizzard recently promote all their QA team members, oddly enough, except the ones at Raven, to full-time status. The ones at Raven, of course, since they decided to unionize, cannot just be immediately promoted up to full-time status. They have to go through their union contact to have that happen, which does kind of feel like a fuck you to the Raven union for even forming to begin with. But that is what happens when you join a union. Everything must be done through the proper channels. You can't just do it like so many people think you can. As for Nintendo's guilt or innocence here, I don't know. Either side of the story wouldn't surprise me. Nintendo tends to have a squeaky clean image, but at the end of the day, they are a company just like everyone else. Every other company is, rather. And they will do what they need to do to maximize profit, including some shady-ass shit at times. Also, keep in mind that this could be the complaint of someone who just happens to have a bone pick with Nintendo. We don't know. But it is important to mention that this is happening because, as the story highlights, this is the first time that such normally a clean company is being hit with this odious side of labor relations that seems to be pervasive throughout the gaming development scene. Anyways, let me know what you all think about this one in particular. I'm very curious to know if people think that there might be something here. If not, what your reasons behind it are. Once again, keep it in mind, we don't know for sure exactly what's happening here. This is a very, very short story. But it is important to note that a complaint has been filed with the NLRB. We'll see if it goes anywhere. Coming up, I'm actually very proud of David Jaffe for this one right here. Via Video Game Chronicle, David Jaffe claims he rejected a $100 million Tencent deal because, quote, I want nothing to do with them, end quote. Man, congrats on you, Jaffe. If that is the case, that is a big chunk of change to walk right through for your convictions, and I salute you for it, because Tencent is a fucking evil company. We talk about horrible shit that people do all the time, but when you are in the pocket of the CCP, that is a major problem. For those of you who don't know who Tencent is, they are a Chinese firm who is heavily involved with the CCP, the ruling body of China, and have investments in multiple studios out there, including Riot, Epic, EA, Ubisoft, I believe, a little bit of Activision Blizzard, and a myriad of other companies out there. I would recommend you take a look at the number of people that are owned wholly or in part by Tencent and be flabbergasted at the size of how much this one company can exert influence over gaming. To the article itself. Speaking of the Sacred Symbols Plus podcast, payrolled and transcribed by VGC, and by the way, I do support Sacred Symbols at the $5 a month level. Important to get those disclosures out of the way. Moving on. The director of the original God of War discussed how he felt uncomfortable in dealing with the company after receiving an offer from it. Jaffe claimed, quote, I had a $100 million deal. I was quoted by a Chinese company and I said, no, thank you, because you're Tencent and I want nothing to do with you. It was bad because it was the Western Tencent and I was a Western guy and that I respect was calling me and I wasn't trying to shame the guy. I hope he's got thick enough skin, and he's been an executive in the business way longer than I have, but I was just like, man, I don't want to do business with a company like that and with a government like that, end quote. It seems like Jaffe's big issue with Tencent is my issue of Tencent. They are heavily tied with the CCP. I believe that the actual membership to the Communist China, the Chinese Communist Party in Tencent is significantly higher than it would be in most other companies. They are very closely in bed with a extremely vile government. And this is along the lines of the Saudi royal family owning most of SNK right now. Sometimes you have to look at something and go, this is fucked, and we should be calling it out every single time. And I would just hope that more people in the future show that the balls that David Jaffe had to tell Tencent to go fuck itself. Because $100 million is a lot of money to walk away. So congratulations, Jaffe, for having the courage of your convictions and telling them to go pound sand when they offered you $100 million for your soul. The article does go on a little bit more to give a few more details behind it, specifically talking about how he wished that they would stop killing people and that the Uyghur Muslims, for example, is just... you can read the article, so all links to these stories will be provided down below. There was a little bit of the update toward the end of the story, by the way, which I want to bring up. Following the publication of the story, Jaffe also shared what appears to be the correspondence with the aforementioned Tencent executive, which he further explained his decision to channel the offer. In addition to his views on China, Jaffe said he wanted to continue dedicating his time to talking about and streaming games on his YouTube channel. So for those of you who think he might be lying about this, he brought the receipts, as he himself says, and you can go take a look at that as well. Once again, links to the story and all others mentioned on this show will be provided down below or on our official Discord server, which you can join at your leisure to be part of the greater GamePoints community. Moving on to this next story here from GamesIndustry.biz, a lot of political ones today. Sorry. California lawyer alleges Governor Newsom interfered with Activision Blizzard suit. This is via GamesIndustry.biz. A lawyer has resigned from the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, saying that California Governor Gavin Newsom has been interfering with the agency's lawsuit against Activision Blizzard for the benefit of a publisher, according to a Bloomberg report. The lawyer was Assistant Chief Counsel for the DFEH, Melanie Proctor, reportedly sent an email to staff last night announcing her resignation and explaining that it was in protest of Newsom firing her boss, DFEH Chief Counsel Jeanette Wiper. The two lawyers have been part of the agency's lawsuit accusing Activision Blizzard of gender discrimination and misconduct, but removed from the suit earlier this month without explanation. By the way, I would not be surprised at all if Newsom was playing some dirty pool here. That man is crooked as the day is long, and I do not hide my loathing for the governor of the state that I reside in. Back to the article. The office of the governor repeatedly demanded advance notice of litigation strategy and the next steps of the litigation, Proctor said in her email. As we continued to win in state court, this interference increased, mimicking the interests of Activision's console. A representative of Whippers said the former chief counsel is considering filing a claim under the California Whistleblower Protection Act. Another update at the end of all this, by the way. A representative with Newsom's office has since reached out to the comment saying, quote, claims of interference by our office are categorically false. The Newsom administration supports the work of the DFEH and has done under Director Kevin Kish to enforce civil rights law and protect workers, and will continue to support the DFEH in their efforts to fight all forms of discrimination and protect Californians. So Newsom's office, coming out and saying this isn't why they were fired, or this isn't why he was fired. She left because of a misunderstanding as to why he was fired, and they are denying any foul play between Newsom and Activision. This is one of those things that I wouldn't be surprised, again, that if Newsom was completely in bed with Kotick, because Activision Blizzard, of course, has most of their buildings in California. They're big California residents. They pay a lot of tax money, and I would not be surprised to find out if Kotick donated heavily to Newsom's campaign. I do not have that information handy. Do your own diligence on that one. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me because business and politics in this state specifically are more or less linked at the hip. So if this is the case, fuck Gavin Newsom. In fact, just fuck Gavin Newsom in general. He's a terrible person. Terrible person. Look up his stint at the French Laundry if you want to kind of get an idea of what kind of man this state has to deal with. Let's look at chat here real quick. The American government is corrupted with business. I would say it's the other way around. I would say business is corrupted with the American government, but your point is still salient. Moving on to the next article here. In this one, oh man, I'm getting nervous. Here, Sean Murray. Hello Games. This is via IGN, by the way. Hello Games says its new project is so ambitious it would seem impossible even with a 1,000-person team. By the way, Hello Games, the people who made No Man's Sky with its disastrous launch and just as shockingly positive improvements over the years to finally give us the game that was promised. Seems like Hello Games' head Sean Murray is once again starting to oversell what he is working on, and I am very, very concerned. Let's go to the article itself. Hello Games' new project would feel impossible to create even with over 1,000 people behind it, the developer had said. Speaking to IGN, studio co-founder and managing director Sean Murray said that, while it's not a sequel to No Man's Sky, the new game is just as ambitious. He said, quote, for a while now, we've been working on something that's pretty ambitious in the background. It's a small team, but we like it that way. Similar to No Man's Sky, it's the kind of project that even if we had 1,000 people on it, it would still seem impossible. End quote. The game was in very early development as of September, but Murray is reassured that, while No Man's Sky is still receiving regular updates and isn't finished by a long shot, the two games aren't impacting each other's development. He ended up going on to say that No Man's Sky is not being held back in the next project, but neither is the new project being slowed by No Man's Sky. We're lucky enough to be able to allow folks to move freely to work on what excites them. That, as an aside, sounds a little bit like what Valve does. Valve has that flat structure where everyone can kind of work on whatever they want to. Leads to some good stuff. Also leads to the fact that we haven't seen Half-Life in 15 years. That going on, though. Nothing else is known about Hello Games' new project, and this is likely be the case for a while, as Murray has previously said, quote, we have learned our lesson on talking about games too early after No Man's Sky open and controversial pre-release. Murray, I don't think you have learned your lesson. Because you're already starting to oversell us by saying it couldn't even be done by a team of 1,000 people. Come on, man. You've earned so much goodwill. You took a beating. You ate your crow. And you turned No Man's Sky into something pretty goddamn decent. It somewhat resembles what you promised, but that took years to do, man. You can't be making grandiose statements like this. You can't. This needs to be the absolute pinnacle of grandiosity from what you're saying. Because if you keep talking about shit about how ambitious your game is going to be, it is going to start eating away at that No Man's Sky goodwill that you've built up over the years for working on that for so long. Might I add, without having any paid content or anything like that. These have been free updates, so good on you. But god damn it, Sean Murray. God damn it, you gotta slow your roll on this. I can't have you going off and pulling a Peter Molyneux again. You did something that is very, very rare in this industry, and that is right the ship. I can count on one hand the number of games that have done that. That is how rare it happens. Do not fuck up that goodwill, man. Please do not. I'm not saying you can't be excited for what's coming up, but you have to. You must realize that you are going to be looked at with far more scrutiny than anyone else would be. You can't. Chat's asking if Minecraft is on that hand. No, Minecraft kind of came out and was successful already from the get-go. Like Final Fantasy 14, for example, would be on that list. You know, I used to have 2 or 3 more examples that I would pull off for this case, but they're escaping me at the moment. But I would not count Minecraft on that list. All right, last news story. And this is kind of rough. Because I wanted this game to succeed. I wanted Platinum. I want Platinum to be a good developer, but this goes back to that idea of being stretched too thin. Via Eurogamer headline: Babylon's Fall concurrent global player count drops below 10 on PC. Not 10,000. 10. For a game that's only been out for a few weeks. Platinum Games' beleaguered new release Babylon's Fall is continuing to struggle a month from its release. As spotted by Tech Radar according to Steam Charts, a site that's predictably enough charts performance of games on Steam, the global concurrent player count for the new game dropped to just 8 players on Wednesday the 13th of April. Its highest ever peak sits at just 1,100 players. In the last 30 days, the average player count has been just 137 simultaneous people. The news comes just after a couple weeks after Platinum Games confirmed that there are no plans to scale back development of Babylon's Fall despite its less than stellar launch. Not only did Square Enix and Platinum Games' collaboration launch to mediocre reviews, it struggled to attract as much interest from players too. Just 2 weeks after launch, Square launched a survey in a bid to help bring everyone a better gaming experience. And now the team is keen for you to know that despite the issues, content up until Season 2 is practically complete, and work on Season 3 is underway. Dear God. Platinum, I feel so bad for you guys, but you keep biting off more than you can chew. And at this point, we have to recognize Platinum's not really a good studio. They have some great hits, but I think they've had more flops than successes. So you have to, you can't just look at a studio for their successes. You have to take it as a whole. And as a whole, Platinum is at best radically uneven in their development and design. For every Bayonetta, you get fucking Babylon's Fall. And what is up with Square Enix chasing these live service games and having them just fail miserably? Look no further than the Marvel's Avengers, which they're still making content for. I think like a couple hours ago before the show went live, they announced that their next hero is going to be Mighty Thor, Jane Foster's character, Natalie Portman's character from the upcoming Love and Thunder. They're going to be adding Mighty Thor to the roster of people on that, but still, Square Enix, this is the same thing that Sega's trying to do now. They keep trying to chase the live service game. Companies don't want just your money anymore. They want your time. And there's only so much time to go around. There is technically infinite money. And what I mean by that is that you can always find ways to get some more money out of someone. That might mean them cutting their Starbucks to throw more money at it, or working that second shift to throw money at it. I know those sound unsavory, but it can happen. What you can't do, however, is add more hours into a day. It's a physical impossibility. Whereas you can find ways to get more money, you cannot get more time. And that is what these live service games are demanding more and more of, which is why when they're coming out, most of them seemingly end up failing miserably. So please, if you're a developer out there, I am begging you, for the future of your company, stop chasing Fortnite. Stop chasing Destiny. You can release maybe one thing and see if it sticks. I don't blame any studio for trying to become the next Fortnite. I get it. That allure is there, and you have shareholders you have to answer to. But after a while, you just have to cut bait. There are so many of these goddamn things out here, and no one is doing anything unique or original. They're all chasing the same goddamn thing. And it's going to start hammering your bottom line. Let's see. Let's take a look here. Ninja Wolf asking, how many flops have Paradox Interactive and Mojang had? The latter is like 0 due to only having one. Yeah, well, Mojang had Minecraft, and they also tried to do a weird kind of collectible card game called Scrolls way back in the day, which I enjoyed a little bit of, but it didn't really go anywhere. As far as Paradox Interactive, they're kind of running into that same thing with their DLC issues, where they're trying to do like I don't know if it's actually live yet or if it's still in beta, but they have like a Paradox live service where you can pay a yearly fee and get access to all of their stuff everywhere. Given Paradox's prolific DLC with its outrageous costs, that one actually might be worth it if you're a big Paradox player. But there's something different between here is a service like, say, Microsoft Game Pass. That's just the Paradox version of it, where you pay a flat monthly fee and you get access to an entire catalog. And putting live service elements in a game that demand you log on weekly to collect whatever bonuses are out there right now. I think we're talking about two slightly different things here in that case. Let's move on to delays, as that has wrapped up the news. We have one delay, and it's kind of I don't want to say it's a big one, but it is an important one. The Witcher 3 Next Generation update delayed again as CDPR takes over development via IGN here. The CD Projekt announced it's delaying the next-gen version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt indefinitely, and it will no longer be releasing the upgrade in Q2. Sorry, I kind of got distracted there by looking at something. Part of the delay may have to do with the change in developer. Previously, the update was being developed externally by Saber Interactive, but CG Projekt Red had elected to bring the remainder of the game development in-house. Quote from a Witcher tweet, or the Witcher account's tweet. We have decided to have our in-house development team conduct the remaining work on the next-gen version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. We are currently evaluating the scope of the work to be done and thus have to postpone Q2 release until further notice. We'll update you as soon as we can. Thank you for your understanding. The upcoming free upgrade is intended to visually and technically enhance the PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X versions of the game, which was originally released in 2015. So this is a game that's now reaching 7 years old at this point, and they keep going back to that well. The upgrade was originally planned for a late 2021 release, but faced initial delays based on recommendations supplied by persons supervising development, according to a 2001 tweet. CD Projekt Red has some problems. I don't think that the stink from Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be leaving that company anytime soon. I think that they are under the gun. I think that there is massive internal pressure that everything they do from here on out must be a hit. And this just adds concern on top of concerns as to what the hell is going on at CD Projekt Red. If they can't even get a 7-year-old game that they made to work on next-gen stuff with an update. Now, I get it. I'm not saying it's easy. Not at all. But what the fuck is going on there, guys? Like, what happened? I'd be very curious to know what is this the case where you just grew too big too fast, where you became arrogant and started thinking you could do no wrong after The Witcher 3 just blew everyone's expectations out of the water? There is something rotten at CD Projekt Red, and I know that's a lot to read into a single delay, but they have. What else are they working on? Okay, let's break that down. They're working on the update to The Witcher 3. They're working on improving and making DLC for Cyberpunk. And they announced they're working on The Witcher 4. Well, their DLC for Cyberpunk 2077, I can imagine, would not be too in-depth at the moment. I think they've said they've kind of winding down improvements to the like bug fixes of the game. They're going to be focused on future DLC. But I don't know if that's going to necessarily be well received. I don't know if that even should be a big priority for them right now. When it comes to The Witcher 4, I know that they might be eager to move past the Cyberpunk issue and just pretend it never happened, but that game's still going to be years and years and years away, and it's probably only in the pre-production phase. Probably. Notice a lot of the conditioner phases I'm saying here. As for this, okay, you brought it back in-house. Maybe that is a good sign. Maybe it's a sign that you're sitting there going, we can't allow anyone else to fuck this up. We need to do it ourselves to make sure it's right. Cool. Great. I can appreciate that. But any bad press or any delay or anything like that coming from CD Projekt Red at the moment is going to be met with an undue amount of scrutiny, and rightfully so. I shouldn't say an undue amount of scrutiny. It is due. Everything they say needs to be scrutinized to the nth degree, given the clusterfuck that was Cyberpunk 2077. And I just don't even know if I care about CD Projekt Red anymore. That's just me. I know a lot of people like Cyberpunk. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. I played it on PC and it was a mess. And maybe I'll revisit it another year or two from now. But it's just sad when I report on this company now, because they used to be so beloved in my eyes. Because I played the original Witcher game when it first came out, and The Witcher 2. I've got the collector's edition. That's somewhere in here. And the third one, I was like, holy hell, they finally made a Western role-playing game that can stand up to what Bethesda puts out, to what BioWare puts out. Great. We now have we had three great role-playing studios in the Western world right now. You had Bethesda, you had BioWare, and you had CD Projekt Red. And now all three of those aren't nowhere near where they used to be. BioWare's fallen off the cliff. We know what happened with Cyberpunk, and Bethesda Game Studios. We've seen Fallout 4. It was all right, but it was really just Fallout 3.5, and they had Fallout 76. This could just be old man yelling at cloud, but after a while, you just have to kind of start becoming very cynical with whatever any of these people are promising, and hopefully they right the ship. But I would love to know what's going on at CD Projekt Red. Let's just say that. That kind of does it for the news. Let's move on to new releases here. We only have one game of note that I wanted to bring up, and that is Teardown. Comes out of early access April 21st on the PC. Prepare for the perfect heist in this simulated and fully destructible voxel world. Tear down walls of vehicles or explosives to create shortcuts, stack objects to reach higher. Use the environment to your advantage in the most creative ways you can think of. Now, if you don't know what Teardown is, a lot of you might seem to remember a video that came out about a year ago when it first entered early access of this truck just swinging its crane around, knocking a few blocks off of a building. People can run up that truck, and then get in through there. It was an extremely destructible world, and people were doing really amazing shit with the demo when it came out back a year ago. It might not have been a demo. It could have just been its early access launch. And I remember seeing it then and going, I need to remember this game for when it comes out because it looks awesome. Well, It's coming out this week. So if you have an interest in Red Faction Guerrilla destructibility on a more technically impressive scale, as well as heists, because I believe the goal of the game is to, say, bust down a bank wall and grab the safe and then run off and bust the safe open. It's that kind of style of game. Then take a look at Teardown on the PC. And with that one new release this week, that does it for the show. This has been GamePoints episode 306, and thank you all for showing up. We do stream this live every Tuesday over at Twitch TV/GamePoints at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But if you can't watch us live, you can find old shows over at YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, and all the other various video hosting platforms. You can follow the show on Twitter at GamePoints PC. Myself, Stephen Brown, at CapitalistPig21. You can join our Discord server, link provided down below if you want to be part of the greater GamePoints community. And that's also where I'll be putting up links to all the stories, as well as in the descriptions to wherever you may be watching this video as well. I do also stream throughout the week, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 1 to 4 and 9 to midnight. 2 shows a day, all times Pacific Standard, of course, if you want to come by and say hi then. Anyways, thank you all for showing up. This has been GamePoints. Until next time, I'm out of here.